A man wakes up from his sleep. Shockingly, his left leg has been brutally eaten by someone. This completely shatters his perception. Gareth sits nearby, relishing his meal and praises the taste of Bob's flesh. He goes on to say what he hated most was the woman with gray hair, because she ruined his end of the terminus. He had been constantly monitoring them but unfortunately couldn't catch her. In our experience, women's meat tastes a little better, especially pretty women, like your girlfriend Sasha. Upon hearing this, Bob becomes somewhat agitated. Gareth continues, saying, "I will capture all of you and devour you. You are merely our appetizers." Bob, in despair, starts quietly sobbing, and it lasts for a long time. Even the people around him start feeling perplexed, thinking he has gone mad. Bob suddenly bursts into laughter, leaving everyone bewildered. They fear that he might attract all the nearby zombies. Bob pulls down his collar and says,
"I've been bitten, you stupid pricks! I'm tainted meat."
a sense of exhilaration surging through his heart, that he can discuss them before he dies. The others feel a churn in their stomachs and desperately want to vomit out what they have consumed. Seeing them becoming more and more disheveled, Bob becomes increasingly joyful. Subordinates worry that they might turn into zombies, but Gareth reassures them that the meat is thoroughly cooked, so there shouldn't be any problem. Sasha, in the church, also realizes that Bob is missing. Anxiously, she searches for him in the jungle but doesn't find him. Instead, she discovers markings on the trees. Just then, she hears a noise behind her and sees a figure hastily retreating. It's evident that someone is monitoring them. Just as she's about to track them, two zombies lunge at her. However, she effortlessly kills them. Rick and Tyrese, hearing the commotion, rush over. Sasha immediately informs them about the surveillance, stating that it's clear Bob has been captured by them. Even Daryl and Carol have gone missing. The three of them return to the church. Sasha, furious, confronts Gabriel, believing he must be colluding with those people. Otherwise, how coincidental is it to encounter them like this, resulting in the loss of three of their own? Gabriel appears somewhat flustered and insists that he has nothing to do with it. Sasha pulls out her knife and presses him for answers, demanding to know who is monitoring them and where Bob and the others are. Gabriel maintained a look of innocence. At that moment, Rick grabs hold of Sasha, being more experienced in handling such situations. Rick remains calm and composed, which adds to the intensity. He directly asks, "What secrets do you have?" Exactly. Facing the beastly Rick, Gabriel's timid and cowardly nature caused him to be intimidated and reveal the truth. He confirmed that he had no connection to the people monitoring them outside. The only thing he had been hiding was a guilty secret. When the apocalypse struck, the members of his church sought refuge in this place. However, Gabriel didn't dare to open the doors, resulting in those people being besieged by zombies. They were calling out his name before they died. Therefore, Gabriel had been burdened with guilt, considering himself guilty. When he finished, his emotions began to crumble. At that moment, Glenn noticed something outside. It appears to be a man lying on the ground. Everyone rushed out immediately and discovered it was Bob, who had lost one of his legs. Sasha looked at him with distress and then took him inside the church. Bob recounted his experiences. He was taken to a school where Gareth and his group savagely ate his left leg while displaying a proud demeanor. Sasha intended to use medication to ease his pain, but Bob didn't want to waste resources. He unbuttoned his collar, revealing that he had been bitten while searching for food. Shortly after, the group gathered together to discuss their next steps. Given Rick's personality, he wouldn't simply let things go, especially with such a deranged group of people. The others agreed as well. Soon, Rick led a group of 6 people out to seek revenge, while the remaining individuals stayed behind in the church to ensure everyone's safety. Just as they left, Gareth and his group emerged from the shadows. This was their plan. They anticipated that Rick and the others would go to the school for retaliation, so they released Bob and made their way to the church. Inside the church, it was empty and eerily quiet. However, Gareth and his group had been monitoring the place all along. They were certain that the remaining people were hiding inside. Carl, who had heard the approaching sound, was already prepared to defend his sister at all costs. Gareth directly ordered his men to occupy the entrances of the rooms, and as he turned the doorknob, they realized that the door was locked from the inside. While he was uncertain about which room they were hiding in, Judith suddenly began to cry, instantly revealing the location of several people. Gareth was very surprised, putting the gun on the floor, Rick's voice coming out of the darkness. Gareth directly threatened Rick. "It was you who put the gun down, or else he would open fire on the room." The words had just fallen, Two of his fingers fell to the ground simultaneously. Rick emerged, and at that moment,
Put your guns on the floor and kneel.
the four individuals became like fish on a chopping board. They dared not resist because Rick wasn't alone. They had underestimated Rick's vigilance. Capturing Bob and then sending him back was already a flaw in their plan. Rick wasn't blinded by hatred. It was a case of the tables turning. Gareth, who had become the captive, realized that based on the enmity between the two sides, he wouldn't survive. However, he was puzzled as to why Rick didn't kill them when he first entered. There must be a reason. Rick coldly replied that it was simply a matter of not wanting to waste bullets. When he was bound earlier, he had uttered a phrase about using a red-handled knife to kill Gareth. Now was the time for that phrase to come true. The remaining few people were quickly killed, without showing any mercy towards these cannibalistic monsters. It was just a very bloody scene. Michonne also saw her knife, which she had lost when she escaped from the terminus. Rick consoled the group because they were the ones who almost died. He meant to say that there was no need to feel guilty for killing those individuals, as they had saved more lives by doing so. Bob was now in his final moments, and one by one, everyone bid their farewells to him. Just as they were about to give him some private time with Sasha, Bob called out to Rick, expressing that he had something to say. He also wanted to see the little baby, Judith, one more time. In his weakened state, Bob said, "I just want to thank you. Before I came to the prison, I thought that good people no longer existed in this world, that everyone had turned into walking dead, but you accepted me and continued to accept others. Thank you, my friend." Finally, Bob also urges Rick to join Abraham and head to Washington to put an end to this terrible world. Rick nodded and replied, "I accept your advice." Finally, Bob and Sasha bid their last goodbyes. They had only just become lovers, and now they were separated by life and death. Tyrese took the knife from his sister's hand. He knew it was a difficult thing for Sasha. The next day, Abraham bid farewell to Rick as he prepared to head to Washington, D.C. He left Rick a map, hoping that Rick would catch up with them and witness the dawn of a new world together. Abraham truly admired Rick's abilities, acknowledging that without him, their group might not have made it this far. However, with Carol and Daryl missing, Rick couldn't leave them behind. Glenn and Maggie also agreed to escort Eugene with Abraham and the others, and so, their group became smaller once again. At night, Michonne couldn't sleep and sat near the door. Suddenly, she heard some noise coming from the woods. She drew her knife and cautiously approached, ready to attack. To her surprise, it was the missing Daryl who came out of the woods. Michonne was happy to see him, but she soon realized that Carol was not with him. Daryl spotted the car that had once taken Beth away. Without hesitation, he and Carol set out to track it down. When Daryl returned again, he was alone, and Carol was nowhere to be found. Back to a week ago, Beth woke up in an unfamiliar room after being taken away, dressed in a hospital gown. If it weren't for the outside view, she would have thought the eschatology was just a dream. Soon, a police officer and a doctor entered the room. The doctor introduced himself as Stephen, and the police officer was Dawn. Beth had many questions at that moment. The doctor informed her that she was at Grady Memorial Hospital and that their people had rescued her when they saw she was being attacked by zombies. She had suffered only minor injuries. Officer Dawn added that they had saved her and she would have to work off her debt here. And so, Beth remained in this hospital, doing menial tasks. Gradually, she discovered the peculiarities of this place. The hospital would treat some survivors, but if they showed no signs of improvement, the rescue efforts would be immediately halted to minimize losses. The leader of the hospital is the female police officer named Dawn. Those who have no hope of recovery are thrown down from the elevator shaft, accompanied by the groans of the zombies. Life here has lost basic freedoms, but the advantage is that there is no shortage of food and clothing. Every day, there is ample food, and when Beth comes to collect her meal, a police officer named Gorman approaches her, trying to strike up a conversation. It was him who brought Beth here in the first place. Beth doesn't want to engage with him because the way he looks at her is unsettling, and she suspects he was the one who knocked her out and took her away. After a while, the people who went outside rescue another survivor who is severely injured. The injuries are very serious. Despite Dr. Stevens' opinion that there is no need to treat them, Dawn places great importance on this survivor and forcing him to save the man. The doctor has no choice but to proceed with the rescue measures. During this process, Dawn is actively assisting as if this injured person were her own family member. She keeps urging Stephen, and his patience wears thin. He tells Dawn directly that the survivor fell from upstairs and is suffering from severe internal bleeding. There are no scanning devices available, and treating him would be a waste of resources. Hearing his words, An unnamed anger surges within Dawn, and Beth becomes the target of her venting. Then she tells Steven, "You better figure out the situation." She's not angry that the man can't be saved. What angers her is her doctor's constant backtalk and challenging of her authority. Beth is also shocked, watching the scene unfold, unable to believe what kind of place this is. Luckily, the doctor proves to be a good person. Not only does he tend to her wounds, but he also comforts her, saying that Dawn behaves like this only when she's in a bad mood. As they walk into the hallway, they witness a woman trying to escape but being caught and brought back. The woman's arm has been bitten by a zombie. Dawn kindly reassures her and urges her to accept treatment, but the woman doesn't appreciate it at all. Her language becomes increasingly vulgar. In the end, Steven has no choice but to amputate her arm. Beth doesn't want to witness this gruesome scene and is about to leave when Dawn calls her back to help. As a result, Beth's clothes get dirty. She hands the soiled clothes to a young boy who is responsible for the hospital's cleaning work. Beth also raised questions. She wanted to know what was wrong with the woman. Why did she run away? The boy's name is Noah, and he tells Beth that he has never seen anyone able to leave. Speaking of which, he shows Beth the wound on his leg. He and his father were on the verge of death when they were rescued by the hospital's people and brought here. They said they could only save one person. After spending time here, Noah realized that it was because his father was stronger and harder to control, so they didn't save him. Noah also tells her, "Don't be fooled by Dawn being the boss here." She turns a blind eye to what the other police officers do. The reason that woman wanted to escape is because she was violated by Gorman. "I'm also looking for a chance to leave. They think we're both harmless, but they don't understand me, and they don't understand you." Upon hearing this, Beth suddenly feels a sense of affirmation from Noah. Later, while cleaning the ward, the woman wakes up. She realizes that Beth is also new here and doesn't hold any grudges against her. Instead, she tells Beth, Dawn is a coward. She could have controlled her subordinates, but she pretends not to see their violations against her. Sure enough, on that day, Beth discovers that the candy she had hidden under the bed is missing. It was given to her by the doctor. While she's puzzled, police officer Gorman walks in and puts the candy in his mouth, commenting on how delicious it is. He even forces Beth to eat the candy. Faced with the overpowering authority, she is completely powerless to resist and can only be forced by the man to have the candy shoved into her mouth. A sense of humiliation rushes over her. Fortunately, at that moment, Dr. Steven steps in and tells him to get out quickly. Gorman directly declares, "This girl is mine," without any trace of a police officer's demeanor. He even arrogantly states that Dawn doesn't care about such matters. He goes on to reprimand the doctor, acting all high and mighty. However, as the only doctor in this place, Steven is not afraid of him and responds by asking, "What will you do when you're sick? Who will you turn to when your wounds get infected?" Gorman starts to back down, leaving the place with an obscene face. After they leave, Beth speaks up and asks why the doctor doesn't leave this disgusting place. Instead of answering, the doctor takes her downstairs. There, it's all zombies and no weapons. It becomes clear to Beth that escaping is simply impossible. They then proceed to the rooftop, where the doctor explains how this place came to be. Beth learns that Dawn killed her superior to gain power and led them to survive in this place. The reason she doesn't intervene with her subordinates is to motivate them to work for the hospital. After a few minutes of conversation, the doctor said he would stay here for a while and instructs Beth to administer type B medication to the severely injured patient. Beth nods, indicating that she will do it. Subsequently, she enters the patient's ward and injects the medication as instructed by the doctor. It is at this moment that Noah happens to pass by the area. Suddenly, the man on the hospital bed starts convulsing uncontrollably, unable to stop. Beth becomes panicked, not knowing what to do. Within minutes, the man loses his breath. Dawn arrives at the scene and interrogates Beth, asking what she did. Before Beth can speak, Noah steps forward and admits that while he was mopping the floor, he accidentally knocked off the ventilator, leading to this tragedy. Shortly after, Noah is taken away, likely to face punishment. Beth quickly approaches the doctor and reveals the truth. However, the doctor denies ever instructing her to administer the medication, claiming that the patient's convulsions were expected. Beth becomes even more confused, saying, "But you told me to give him the type B medication." Surprisingly, the doctor adamantly denies it, saying, "I never said that." Beth is at a loss for words. At this point, Noah's pained voice could be heard in the next room. She wants to rush over and clarify the situation but is stopped by the doctor. Noah truly is a brave man. He knows that if Beth were to be punished instead, it could lead to other unfavorable consequences, so he volunteered to take on. Beth looks at him with a pang of sorrow. She has already made up her mind to leave this place with Noah. Noah, after thinking for a moment, suggests that they escape through the basement, which is the fastest route but also very dangerous. Any slight noise could attract zombies. He plans to distract Dawn while she searches for the spare elevator key in her office, the two waiting for the right moment to take action. In the afternoon, Beth exits the patient's room and sees Dawn dispatching supplies. Noah is also present. Giving her an affirming glance, Beth immediately understands the message and quietly makes her way towards Dawn's office. She sneaks in and starts searching through every drawer, desperately looking for the spare elevator key. However, to her shock, she notices bloodstains on the floor. It was that woman she came here with scissors. It seems the woman didn't want to live. She cuts herself. There, written on the ground, is a scathing message cursing Dawn. Beth laments for the woman's tragic decision but quickly refocuses on her mission. She resumes her search and soon finds the key in the second drawer on the. Just as she lifts her head, Gorman walks in. Beth seizes the opportunity and swiftly exits, ensuring that he doesn't discover the woman's body. Instead of exposing her, Gorman used the situation to blackmail Beth, lewdly manhandling her. Beth glances back and notices the woman's fingers twitching. She nodded and pretended to obey Gorman, who became more excited and misunderstood her obedience. Unbeknownst to he, the woman had already regained consciousness. Just moments ago, Gorman was praising Beth for her obedience when suddenly, the zombie directly bit into his throat. This woman has completed her revenge. Beth quickly made her way out. Locking eyes with Noah, they hurriedly reached the elevator shaft, where they had prepared a rope. From here, they could descend into the basement. Noah secured the rope around Beth's body and slowly lowered her down. Fortunately, she landed safely on the ground without any incident. It was now Noah's turn, and everything seemed to be going smoothly. However, unexpectedly, a zombie reached out to grab him, causing him to accidentally let go of the rope. He plummeted down but luckily landed on a pile of corpses, saving his life. Beth quickly followed suit and jumped down. They supported each other and made their way out of the corridor. Beth handed the flashlight to Noah and pulled out Gorman's handgun. There were zombies around, so they had to be cautious and avoid drawing attention. Fortunately, Beth had previous experience with Rick and had encountered numerous situations like this before. Shooting and killing zombies had become routine, now rushing all the way out. The moment they opened the door, the glare made them a little uncomfortable. The exit was right in front of them, and they sprinted towards it. However, many zombies had also surrounded them. Beth could have been the first one to run out, but she chose to stay behind and cover Noah. Slowly, she too became surrounded by zombies. However, to her relief, gunshots rang out from behind her. The zombies are also falling to the ground. The police had caught up. Noah had already escaped outside, but he had no choice but to leave Beth behind, and Beth was once again caught and pinned to the ground. As she watched Noah escape, she felt a sense of solace. Beth didn't care about being captured again. She confronted Dawn and unleashed a barrage of curses, only to be met with a slap. This time, she was beaten quite severely. The doctor, as always, tended to Beth's wounds. As the doctor was about to leave, Beth directly asked, "You knew that man was a doctor, so you made me administer the wrong medicine, didn't you? You used me to kill him because if he had survived, there would be one more doctor, and Dawn wouldn't need you anymore." Stephen didn't refute her accusations because Beth's statements were completely accurate. This man was a famous doctor before the end of the world. If the man had survived, with luck Stephen would have been evicted. With misfortune he might even have been killed by a scumbag like Gorman. Beth had finally realized the true nature of this place, nothing but filth and hypocrisy. She picked up the surgical forceps and walked into the corridor. Saving people here was merely a means of serving them. She intended to put an end to Dawn's deceitful ways. For this, she wasn't afraid of death. However, at that moment, the police brought in another person they had rescued from outside. Someone Beth recognized. It was Carol, who had been with Daryl in the pursuit of the car.